I'd like to call to order this special meeting of the Fall River School Committee for Monday, September 12th. Deb, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Agia?
Here.
Mr. Bailey?
Here.
Mr. Hart? Ms. Flaherty?
Yes.
Ms. Ferrera? Ms. Roderick?
Here.
Mayor Tullio?
Here. We'll salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Isn't that off? Now I want my kid to play.
So tonight, we have no citizen input at this time. The purpose of the meeting is goal setting with Superintendent Maria Ponce, so I will therefore turn it over to our superintendent, Ms. Ponce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So what you have before you, you have a draft, and I want to say draft because the purpose of this committee is, of this meeting is to share the draft and to get feedback from you and then go back and refine those goals and, hopefully present the second read and they get adopted in October. One thing that I have learned from other superintendents is actually, because if you notice the first goal, we don't have our data yet. And I was asking some superintendents about that, and they were saying that they usually do their goal setting in October because the data usually comes in at the end of September or early October so that we can actually have some concrete numbers. Certainly, we will, by the time we meet again, I will share the numbers with you and add those numbers in there for you. But at this time, for the student learning goal, we don't have the targets yet set by the state. So, that goal is incomplete, right? That we're waiting for. We have some data, but not, it's embargoed and not the data that we need to calculate the goals. If you notice that the format is a little bit different simply because last year's goals were, I got some feedback from the committee. Some of those goals really belonged in departments, and we needed to take the overarching piece of those goals and include it into my goals, and that's what I tried to do. This format mimics our teachers and administrators. Everybody has to submit a student learning goal, a professional practice goal, and some district improvement goals. And in this case, we have 4 district improvement goals. So I try to model what we want to see and what we do for our staff. So I'm going to, if everybody, certainly we don't have concrete numbers, but if people have any questions on the student learning goal, certainly can take some feedback from that, or we can skip over to the professional practice goal.
When is the, when do you can?
We have been getting some data. We will be getting, the goal is that by the end of the month we'll have data. Usually the data comes out the end of September, early October. I will say the target accountability targets won't come out until later on, but based on like our attendance data, chronic absenteeism, we'll get those numbers at the end of the month, and we'll be able to set goals, that are related to that data.
Anything further on the student learning goals, Mr. Agia?
When you look at the timings that you just explained, so where it says during the 2022-23 school year, with the staff usually, I believe we used to use like by June of 2022, whatever. So I'd like to see a date, more of a solid date in there, so that we can now know, and it'll help us to know when we're going to meet. So this might be from October or November to November, because it doesn't make sense to do it while you just articulated it. But when I looked at the goals in the past as well as now, I want to see in, let's say it's November of next year, how did we do with the goals? Did we meet them or not? And the cleaner we make this, the easier it's going to be to determine that. And I think sometimes, even when I was working in the school system as an administrator, that was very difficult if we weren't clear on the front end. So for me, I would want to see.
That actually makes a lot of sense because the superintendent's evaluation cycle is November to November. So it probably makes sense to do it October to October to have the data so that when the evaluation happens for November, that you have everything, and then we can do exactly what you're just saying.
That says it's not, but move it accordingly. But
so by October,
along that same line, the schools, when the schools come in, I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I'm a little confused with their goals as well. So that when we're trying to keep it in the same format, and I think I mentioned this at the last time, so that you would hold them accountable for like the attendance we had talked
Right,
about last
right.
time. So you can't make a goal personally that says the attendance is going to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
If you don't hold them accountable to their piece. So
Yep.
how that integrates to this, like, so next time we meet on this, maybe if we could articulate each school's goals in another page of this or something, it'll help us
Okay.
to figure out. So like, I'd have to have my research to go back and say, well, all of the schools are going to improve by 10% on such and such. And then if you give us this without that info, now I'm like, well, you say 5%, but they might say 10%. One school might say greater percent. You know, it's just trying to
Right.
put them all together.
All schools have to have like their goals are, you know, related to my goals, right? To the district goals and district improvement plan. And they all have to have, one of the things that we got back from last time is that attendance needed to be called out by itself because it's such an issue in our district. And every school, that's one of the things that we did. Every school in their school improvement plan has to have an attendance goal. So that's a good thing. We could actually do a one-pager for each school in regards to what their SIP goals are so that we can bring it to you so that you can see how it aligns.
Yeah, and if you look at the, I think I was reading through the evaluations are on another section, right?
Yep.
But to get back to this part, when the schools, I don't necessarily think are uniforming what they have to, what you or prior superintendents have mandated. So they're all over the place as well. So I would say in the meantime, they should all somewhat look similar, so that where everybody wants to be whatever X amount proficient or something. If we got a very lower performing school, their goal might be just to make 10%, but 10% isn't fair to his school because his school's already thriving.
Right.
Like, how does it all get relative, you know, at the end of the day? So that's all I have on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything further on student learning goals?
Can I ask one more? So
course.
when we were talking about the data for the state, sometimes we rely, I think, on too much of the state data. And we spent hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on things that we paid for so that schools could assess their children on a regular basis. I'll speak again for myself. I don't necessarily see the results of that throughout the year in any fashion at all, except for when we push it like at a subcommittee meeting.
Right.
But on a regular bi-monthly basis or something to say, where are all the schools at when they're doing their assessments? So it shouldn't be a surprise at the end of the year. So I know you're looking at that info, but somehow if we could weave in
Regular.
regular updates on our own assessments,
Yep.
that we can say, well, the kids are making progress or not.
And they're using the school-based data to create their goals because principals can't use MCAS data for their goals, like not the principals, but the staff, because MCAS data doesn't come in until after, so they have to use benchmark data, you know, based on some of the curriculum that we have, the platforms that we've invested in. So certainly, yep, and we should have regular data updates.
Is that something we could do? Well, I mean, maybe regular, but maybe once in the middle of the school year and then at the end of the school year?
Well,
I
I
don't
mean-
know, like regular updates, but yeah, maybe like
Yeah.
quarterly
Right.
or half-year
Yep,
point.
and we're going to have instructional subcommittee meetings
Right.
quarterly, right? So
Right.
that could be one of the pieces for
Of
the
the-
instructional
sounds
subcommittee.
good.
So I can't say that every single quarter we'll have data points for every single piece.
Right.
But whatever data points we have, we report out on that data. Does that make sense?
Could we just get access to last year's goals for them? Because I know, like, for Bobby and I, we don't have access. We don't know what their goals were last year to be able to compare.
the schools?
Schools, yeah.
Yeah, we
This
can do that.
process
Of
last
course.
Yeah, because we
Yep,
don't
no,
have that.
History.
Yeah.
When you mention the, well, it's quarterly or whatever, I think that it should be some regular pattern, however that fits. But I think there's a disconnect between all of the resources that we're putting in and what is the difference in that, what is that making along the way?
The impact.
The impact that's happening, who cares about what the MCAS scores or this is? We should be seeing growth in the kids. And if we're not, or we see your school is really good growth, yours is moderate, yours is really low, then we're going to hold you accountable to say, what are you doing to make his school follow I think we miss that boat too sometimes in here. So we have pockets of, that person's doing great with this. Well, why the hell isn't it being done in all schools? But we don't see the data that goes with that, so that's.
For why something might not be able to be
Right.
implemented in the same way, or are they just missing the boat on something?
Or it depends on the school, but I will say that one of the things that we are creating or reestablishing, we've had that in the past, and then kind of it went by the wayside for many different reasons. So we are creating data cycles with each school. Right now, everybody's getting their MCAS data. Myself, Dr. Curley, our Office of Instruction team, we're going to go out to schools, do a data dive with the principals and their instructional team to do a baseline, let's look at the data, what are our goals as a result of that data, and we're going to do, we are tiering our schools, high-need schools, the moderate schools, and meeting with them regularly to do exactly that. Okay, so what are your short-term goals? How does the data, okay, we just have data from this benchmark. How does that relate to the goal that you set? Do we need to make any adjustments? So we weren't in that cycle, and we're going back to that cycle of monitoring and supporting schools. It's really about
Support.
putting supports in school as well as putting accountability measures, and what gets monitored gets done. And we need to model that as a district team so that our schools do it and it trickles down.
Okay. How about the professional practice goals superintendent?
So obviously, I have a responsibility to model best practices and being a reflective practitioner for all staff. I need to continue to grow and build my own capacity. Last year, as being a new superintendent, I was part of the new superintendent's network. I will be part of that year 2. That comes with coaching and mentoring. I also will be participating year 2 in the Lynch leadership and doing monthly learning walks at buildings, giving principals feedback. Everything we expect our principals and our building leaders to do, we're going to be doing as a district team, and I'm going to be growing as a leader so that I can model for our principals and our leaders what we expect. And now we have our district improvement goals. So Mr. Aguirre just alluded to that, supervision evaluation. If you notice, so certainly our district has grown. We have added departments. We are trying to put good systems in place, systems of support, systems of accountability. So we do a pretty good job with evaluating administrators and teachers, but we have to do a good job at evaluating everybody, right, and supporting everybody. People, if I don't evaluate you or give you feedback, you don't know. You think you're doing a great job because you haven't heard otherwise. So our goal is to have all staff evaluated, regardless of which department they work in. We need to have a system. We need to create goals, and we need to give people regular feedback. So that's one of the district improvement plans. Improvement goals is to make sure that we have systems of support and accountability through evaluation and supervision. The other one is equitable access. The school year, if you notice, I didn't call out a specific, last year we had a specific goal for special needs, a specific goal for our multilingual learners, et cetera. So if we are a district that supports all students and gives all students access, we need to make sure that we do that by creating the sense of belonging, by building relationships, providing the appropriate scaffolds for students, and expanding what we have already in place. So we're going to expand our programs, like dual language, we're going to roll over. We rolled over to first grade, next year to third grade. We're going to continue that model. We're going to continue to support all students who, where they are, right? So I think that we're pretty good about intervening to the kids that are at the bottom, and then we forget to accelerate the kids at the top. We need to make sure that we meet kids where they are and put systems in place that support all students and provide every single person access and scaffolds. Scaffolds happen for the students who are struggling as well as the students who are excelling, and we need to make sure that we have those tiered systems of support in place. Having a multi-tiered system of support was one of our goals last year that really didn't get off the ground the way it needed to. So we need to make sure that we have that system in place so that we're making sure that we support all learners, right? So, what happens in Tier 1, what happens in Tier 2, what happens in Tier 3. But we need to have a district model, and that needs to funnel down to all the schools. Does anyone have any questions?
I had a question on the other one, but
That's all right, I'm sorry.
the professional practice goal on collaborative planning, facilitation of monthly principal meetings.
Yep.
Can we get copies of the agenda for those meetings?
For the principals meetings?
Just never seen one of those before, and over the years, sometimes I wonder, like, what is being discussed
Right.
at those meetings. It'll just help us to know
Sure.
what that really is.
And sometimes those are, principals meetings, our focus is to try to make them meetings where we build capacity, right? Obviously, in the beginning of the year, we're going to have some safety training at the beginning of the school year, but sometimes there's some nuts and bolts, and a lot of times it's about looking at data. What are we doing?
Yeah,
Sharing data with our
yeah.
principals and talking about plans for moving forward. But yeah, we can certainly share that.
And one of the reasons why I asked that is because sometimes we have meaning anybody, or any school system, you have meetings that could be done by email, like it's check the box, like this, that, But those meetings, in my opinion, are for higher level instructional, what are we doing? And we can morph into the, oh, by the way, don't forget, this is due then, but more action oriented, this is what we're going to be doing. That's why I was asking for that. And then you put examples of monthly feedback to principals as measured by, which is a good thing. But in the past, what we used to get was random, for no reason whatsoever, things sent to us. So in my mind, if we're going to use as measuring by professional practice goals and all that, and walkthroughs and feedback, then I think all of those should be sent to us. If we're going to use that as a measure in your, whether you're making this goal or not, to me, don't just send me one or two, and it's like, well, random. Well, why did we get this in the mail? Like, what is this about? If this is what we're going to measure it by, then I think we need to see all of them.
Well, that would be part of my collection of evidence. I mean, just like we wouldn't expect a teacher, they have to, because you evaluate teachers, right? They're not going to submit every single thing they do, but they give you a sampling of the things that they do. So certainly in my collection of evidence, I would have samplings of feedback. So I might have a formative evaluation, a summative, some unannounced or whatever, but I wouldn't include every single one in my binder, because it would be a very, very thick binder. But certainly, I think that...
But I think you'd agree that we shouldn't just get a selected one.
Right, oh, absolutely.
Well, two, you know what I mean? Like,
And it
that
needs to
doesn't make
be...
sense to-
Right, yeah.
Consistent. Why
Needs to be
is it-
consistent.
It needs, yes.
We don't get the names.
No, we would have to redact that.
Redact
Yes,
the names.
Yeah, we don't
No, we
need
got the names in
names.
the past. Absolutely.
Why do we need the
No,
name?
I
I don't
don't
think we
think
need,
it's-
I don't think we need
What do
the
you mean?
names.
We have. It's not a debate. It's a fact.
But why do we need the names?
Superintendent sends us, go in, I went to Henry Lord School, here's my feedback for the Henry Lord School. We got it in email, 100%.
Who sent you that?
The superintendent, the
Malone?
prior superintendent.
Prior superintendent.
So then, when you look at it, I think it's very valuable, and why would we not? Plus, we should get it, because why would we not get something to say, this is your analysis as who we actually are the ones that hold you accountable. This is your analysis of those schools. If there's nothing to hide, then why would we not get it with a name on it? That's another thing I think we've got to get rid of around here, is that everybody's so worried about, oh, well, we can't just say, no, it is what it is. We're all professionals. If you're going to go and do it, you send us something, we should be able to see it. Why would we not see it? What are we afraid to say? Well, I went to such and such school and this happened, this is the feedback I gave? If that's the case, then take it out of the goals.
So my gut feeling is we're probably talking about different things. So Kevin, I'm not hearing that as like a staff name. I'm hearing it just like a general collective. I noticed this when I walked into Henry Lord. The safety measures were in place.
He's asking for actual
He
feedback,
wants
though.
Coogan.
Okay.
If I evaluated Meany, then what the
I don't
feedback
know
was.
what's supposed to be involved.
You're
No.
talking
So
about
you do a formal
unannounced or
evaluation.
whatever.
But when you go around, so just.
But
I'm gonna
not
just be-
individual people.
I'm gonna just be
Right. Lots of
candid,
people.
totally 100%
Yeah.
candid. This is what we used to get from the old superintendent. He went around, he'd grab a couple of school committee members, he'd go around to a school, it would be a dog and pony show. It'll be, well, wonderful this, all of this other stuff, like as if everything's hunky-dory, 100%. And then we all of a sudden get this feedback that says, here's what my walkthrough was when you're walking around with school committee members. I'll speak for myself. Nobody should be walking around with school committee members doing an evaluation such as this.
That's not what it was for.
There was never
No,
evaluations.
Kevin,
There
that
were
was for
never
his program.
evaluations.
I know what that was for. That was for his program that he was in that required him to do so many walkthroughs. So what the former superintendent would do was take his materials from that and wrap it into his class. But as far as what he was doing for that school specifically, to say Principal Aguirre left out the third grade from the data, but whatever concrete things, he was giving you just what you said, fluff that was not concrete, it was for his class.
Right, well, I don't care if she takes a class or she doesn't take a class, and keep the fluff out as far as I'm concerned.
That's
So
what
when
you
he
got,
used to
though.
send to us was when we go walk through with print, and I support it. You want to go through, let's go walk through a school and see what's going on, great. I work every day, I can't do that. So I don't think it should be done as much as it was done in the past with Dr. Malone. But with that being said, you have a duty to do instructionally, to go through. and
That's
do it.
right.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm
Right.
talking about the real work, not
Not the
fluff
fluff,
stuff.
yeah.
So,
But that's what he sent you, fluff.
well, it was over and over, yeah. It was like, well, this happened, that happened, we gave high fives to kids, we took pictures with this one, we did that. Like,
wasn't-
nah, that's not,
I can go
this
high
is
five.
more instructional, like, what you
Practices,
really
yeah.
are doing, and how do we know you're giving quality feedback to a school? Like, that's all, I'm not looking to, I don't evaluate somebody.
So you're asking
hired
to see
by-
some samples of feedback?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's pretty fair. The second one, you said district improvement goals, all staff 100%. Can you tell us what it is now, what the baseline is now? So based on that goal.
I think in some departments, so teachers and administrators are in the 90s, and certainly if it's somebody's out, goes out on FMLA or whatever, they might have gotten left out. For the most part, that's why we would have someone not being evaluated, but I think other departments, we don't have consistent evaluation systems in
get the
place.
data?
I can get that data.
well,
And try to get, I don't know if that data was collected.
Teacher
but I
and
will check.
admin, though, was in the high 90s. I think
Yes,
you told me
yes.
something. So that was, and again, it was the same thing. Kevin's out 12 weeks for a child or whatever.
Right.
They don't have those. But they nailed everybody that was in the building.
Yes, so,
Okay.
but what he's asking, what I'm
overall, he
saying
wants
is
overall.
overall, what I was saying was, we want, system-wide, we want to put systems of support and accountability. We've expanded, we've created departments, so we need to have, and part of our negotiations has been to create labor management teams where they're looking at the tools and refining them and making them more targeted for specific groups. So moving forward, we need to make sure that we put those to practice and make sure that everybody gets
So
evaluated.
everybody has an
accordingly.
assigned evaluator, whether you're an adjustment counselor, an attendance officer, a security guard.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That's what our goal is.
So it says here, in order to ensure effective and timely supervision of all staff, 100% of staff will be evaluated in accordance with state regulations.
Absolutely.
What I'm asking is the questions on, like we would with a staff member. Do your self-assessment about where you're at and the people before you. So this is not to, criticize anybody or anything, but that's a basic expectation.
Right.
That if anybody thinks that that shouldn't be a basic expectation, they're in the wrong profession. Sadly, that number is not even close to 90%. When we get those data, we get it from the ones that are in the union, either unions or whatever. We're not getting it across the board 100%. So I agree with what your system that you're trying to put in place. But in order to fix the system, we have to acknowledge what's wrong with the current system. And there is deficiencies across the board with people that are in powerful positions, that are in leadership positions, that have not evaluated staff that are under them. It's hard to believe, but it's a fact. So that's why I'm asking for the data, is that we've got to say, this is what it is. If Mr. Bailey's looking at it and I only evaluated 10% of my staff and I'm a manager, I'm a leader in a department, well, Mr. Bailey's got a right to come after me and say, what are you doing? How are you only evaluating this? There should be nobody that said, in this district, not one person that says, I haven't been evaluated in years. That should not come in out of anybody's mouth. And if we're being honest, we know that's the case. Many people haven't been evaluated for years. I asked at a meeting 2 months ago to get a data on a certain department to say how many people were evaluated or not. To this day, I still don't have that information. And I know why I don't have it, because the people that are in those departments, that are running those departments, didn't take it as a priority to say, this is what I need to do. But as you mentioned before, Mrs. Ponce, when you measure it, they will address it. So if somebody was asking them, you tell me a checklist of all the people in your department that by contract was supposed to be evaluated once or every year, every second year. If you don't ask that person for the data, they're going to go year after year after year. And we just keep dealing with the same old. So I'm not trying to criticize anybody, but I think that's what drilling down a good goal is, and you got to find the baseline. Thank you.
Ms. Rogers.
Do we have, it says all evaluators will participate in PD. Do we have a set PD for them?
Yes.
On the evaluation process?
So yes, we do. It depends on the department. We're setting up for other departments that haven't had professional development, but we're doing training for all people who evaluate.
And the evaluation tool for teachers is set by the state.
Yeah.
For administrators is set by the state.
Yes.
But the ancillary groups around the edges, are those in-house evaluations, or do they break down every department? I mean, do we have, like, security guards, just for example? Do they have an in-district, or is it something by the state?
They have in-district. We actually had one tool that was a catch-all for everybody.
Okay.
And as we're meeting with each group, we're personalizing that tool for that
fit that
department.
job. Okay.
Yes.
Anything further on the district improvement goals? Keep going.
So the student attendance goal, as we know, student attendance, we just got ourselves back into hopefully a routine, right? Last year we came back in person. Attendance still suffered greatly due to COVID, in, out. We told kids to stay home if they weren't feeling well, et cetera. So we need to get ourselves back on track. So one of the things we were supposed to do last year was to reestablish the attendance task force, which that didn't get done. So we're prioritizing that. We are doing some root cause analysis with our staffs, with our school, as well as every school has set up a student support team to track and monitor student attendance, to create some personalized goals for kids. Obviously, we need to work with our attendance officers. We have a tiered support also there. They're doing mostly tier 3, and then school, they're doing tier 1 and 2. We certainly have community facilitators that we've brought on board that are doing some work with connecting families and creating opportunities for families to engage with us in instilling the importance of kids being in school. So it is a priority. It is a priority for us as a district. It is a priority for us as individual schools. We know that if kids aren't in school, they're missing out on something. So we need to first get them in so that we can get them start closing those gaps.
Mr. Aguirre?
So the key actions, reestablish the attendance task force. I know that this was a sort of a contentious issue under the prior superintendent, and that it was good progress was being made, and then all of a sudden it just stopped. COVID excuses, whatever the excuses are, I personally don't care. But this, from what I can remember, the attendance task force was doing a lot of good things, and they were doing well. Then all of a sudden it just stopped. But we're already in October, or September. So
Cindy already has, we're creating a meeting. We're targeting, we have to be very specific as to who's going to be part of that task force, and setting up the first meeting. So that's going to get set up immediately.
yeah, my point in saying it is that sometimes when you reestablish something, it's like we got to reinvent the wheel. We got to go through
No.
all the. I thought that the people that were on it were doing well, and I think they had some good ideas. They just need to be decisions need to be made, and they need to be implemented. But when I would just caution that it needs to just be up and running again, not necessarily let's just start over.
Right.
We have people that work for us that are good people that know what we need to do. So I would do that. The other piece of it, when I look at the school, it says all school monitor. When the attendance officers in the job organization, the org charts, I think they work for the district, under the district, but not the schools.
Right.
And I would argue the point that the fact that we have enough of them now that they probably have 2 schools or
Right,
whatever,
right.
I think they should work for the principal, in my personal opinion, so that the principal of the school knows, I have, these 2 my attendance officers, or Mr. Bailey's my attendance officer. He's with me every Tuesday and Thursday. I got him all day. We're going to be this stuff here of meeting, we're going to be on the plan, we're going to have these other meetings. If they're not working for the principal, it makes it just another layer. So my personal advice, for what it's worth, would be to have the principals look at that a little greater. And if you felt that under those circumstances that they're working tremendously hard, we got these issues, whatever, and we need another one, or we need another 2, I'd more than support that if it was proven that they were doing the work. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Right now, we just add stuff sometimes without the, but if you did that under the principles and you did an organization and you said, if we had 1 more, I can streamline this a little better so everybody has at least 2 days a week in attendance offices, in their
Right.
buildings under their control, I would support adding 1 personally. Because attendance is, if they're not here, they're not going to learn. So with that, I yield. Thank you.
And then the last goal, we did feel like, I felt like we did need to call out human capital goal by itself, because we continue to struggle. Obviously, we know there's a national teacher shortage, and we're not unique in this, but we certainly need to do more to attract quality people to our district, to retain our staff. So that goal is a standalone goal that is targeting. We need to I just think that we need to partner with our universities around us and really create some opportunities to bring people in, whether we bring them in as student teachers and create a pipeline there, or interns, which we've had some success with, continue to grow the JEP program. We just need to, that attention needs to be in building human capacity so that we can, we're not, and we want, our goal is to be staffed at 98% when we open next year. We always know that there's reasons why, people, we may not have a person, but we want to get back to as close to 100% staffed as possible. And in order for that to happen, there's some work that needs to be done by us as a district to recruit and retain our staff.
I did think you said the right thing.
Yeah.
It's everybody I talk to is under the gun on staff right now. I was reading an article in the paper today, Portland, Maine, can't get any special education teachers. They're thinking of going to 4 days a week for SPED kids to try to be able to rotate them through. It's that dire up there, so they're working hard too. Mr. Aguirre.
So along the lines of the self-assessment that I talked about for the teachers and staff that we do, I'd like to see some of the self-assessment of the human capital goal, because I've been on this committee back now for 4 or 5 years, and I've seen some of these same things over and over, and really nothing happens with it. So I'm just curious to see when we do a baseline, where we've been, what we have and haven't done, and before we get this finalized. Obviously, it's an issue when we can't fill positions, but there's also things that we can advocate for. The mayor just talked about special education. Like, to me, it still defies logic why you can get an emergency license to be a teacher, but you can't get an emergency license to be a special ed teacher, even though you're a certified teacher.
Right.
Like, what the hell is that? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So those are the types of things that, to the departments, from the HR through you to your organization, should be going to the legislature, saying, this is what we need. That it just blows my mind about the special education piece of that, but
So an advocacy piece in here. That's
yeah,
what
or
you're
something
looking
like,
for.
so
Yeah.
when we, instead of just saying, oh, we have this issue, oh, we have this issue, oh, we have this issue, well, what is it? Like, one of the things I think that the state said, you can bring back teachers that were
Right,
retired,
retired.
and the cap is gone, and that's a good thing. But that's done from the state, but how did that get to the state? Somebody had to advocate through the unions, through you. So I'm not criticizing the stuff that you have in here. I know you got recruitments in here, things like that.
Right.
How many recruitments have we done over the last 4 or 5 years? Like, that's what
Right.
a self-assessment I would ask for from a teacher. What have you done? Like, so let's
Right.
look at it and see where we're at.
Okay.
Are there any, is there anything that
questions? Yeah.
needs to be on here that I didn't include in the goals, or any other goals that need to be added, or
I don't like the old one because it was so extensive that it was just too much. It was too much. This is clean. Anyway.
Can I ask you what this means? Quarterly principal survey data shows that 85% of principals agree with indicators of success. Like,
That-
what does that exactly?
That's part of their Lynch leadership. They had to survey principals and to see where they were at and where they were going, and it's been very well received, and they have to put into practice what they learn in Lynch leadership. So that's a result. I can get you that. I can get the committee that piece. But what that
It's not
survey.
really clear, right? Like, I'm not.
Okay. Yep. All right. So we'll
I just
clarify
feel
that.
like, I'm trying to have a hard time figure out what.
Like, what
do
does
you
it
mean they
actually
agree or
mean?
agree with indicators of success? Like, what the heck does that mean? Because to me, you could have a principal that doesn't agree with what you want to do.
It's what they identified as the indicators of success as a collective group. It was part of the survey. So we can share
I'm
that
just curious.
survey.
I mean, you have it here, so later on we look to say, well, what did we measure? So
Mm-hmm.
if it's just something that's, I said fluff before, but I'm not,
Right.
like the same thing, what does it matter? Then just take it out would be, or if you want it in, then tell us what it is.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything further for the goal-setting meeting?
I just had a comment.
Mrs. Rogers?
So my comment was just that I appreciated that you talked about creating a sense of belonging among all program areas, because in the past, what we've done is we've talked about in special education, we're only going to identify these issues here, and in our MLL students, we're only going to work on these issues here, instead of looking at it as this is an entire district, not just a special ed piece and an MLL piece. Like, they're all of our kids, and they all belong in there, so I just appreciate that you created that across the board, as opposed to just these individual siloed pieces.
Good point. Anything further, Mr. Aguirre?
Under the goal, the pre-K goal,
Yes.
an increase by 5 classrooms.
Minimum of 5.
So what I would just ask, and I think I've asked for this before when we were talking about the buildings, we need solid data on what we have, what we don't have, and what we need by regulation versus like a want versus a must-have, things like that. But I think that 5 is a little low.
Well, because we're looking at, last time I didn't have, because I said it was because of staffing, right? We know that we increased by 5 last year. That was the number, and those numbers fluctuate, right? Because it's as kids qualify for services. After they're 3 years old, they can qualify for services, so that's a rolling number. Maybe I need to put a minimum of, obviously, we're putting a comprehensive plan together in regards to how we're going to expand. I don't want to say 10, and then we don't have space for 10, right? Because that absolutely has to do with spacing. But I think that,
I would simply add that to, so
As
an increase of a minimum of 5 classrooms, and then continue the sentence to say, in conjunction with this, the larger plan that we're creating or
Okay.
something. It just shows, so, like I said again, if we're not clear on what it is, so you could increase by 5 if we just left this and say, oh, that's great. Well, you had the opportunity maybe to do 20, but you only did 5, well, I still got to say you did, that's all. Just maybe clarify that there's a bigger piece to it. I do, thank you.
Can I add one thing too? I just want to pivot back to the attendant. Maybe it would fit under attendance, but I know we've had conversations in the past about having better attendance at school participation in community events.
Yes.
Especially such as the kickoff to summer. So I don't know if we can discuss if that can be a goal or if that's something we discuss down the road, but maybe just discuss how that can happen. It was a little upsetting to see the community side coming on strong the past 2 years, 3 years, and seeing the block party, the kickoff to school block party, not having schools there. So I don't know if it's something we want to put in goals or something we can revisit later on, but maybe something to do. I mean, I don't know if it would fall under attendance aspect of it, but like definitely a community engagement, or
Right.
the facilitator, or, you know, something to that aspect.
And that actually also fits into individual goals, right? As well as Miss, Cindy's goals, Miss Cooper's
Right.
goals
Right.
in regards to what we want to see for us as a district. I agree. I was there. It was disappointing, right? Timing is an issue, right? Everybody, if anything, I'm not going to make an excuse, but
Yep.
this is a year that principals have been working nonstop to
Yeah, and that's
support their
definitely
buildings
understandable.
and hire.
Yep,
So, but I will add that in there.
thank you.
Anything further to come before this? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion, second. Deb, please call the roll.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Hart? Ms. Flaherty?
Yes.
Ms. Guerrero?
Yes.
Ms. Roderick?
Yes.
Mayor Coogan?
Yes.